Welcome my friends to a new episode of Frameworks. And in this episode I'm going to talk about task-based learning. Now actually in this approach things are a bit different. So in the previous approaches, in most of them, we used to start with the language part and then we move to the task part. And because usually we say that students need language in order to do the tasks. But it's not the same scenario here in TBL. In TBL, things are upside down. And what I mean by this is that in TBL, we start with a task, a communicative task, and then after that we discuss the language. So let's go through the stages of the task-based learning approach. Let's do that. Now in task-based learning, my friends, we have three main stages. Pre-task, task cycle, and post-task. So three main big blocks. Pre-task, task cycle, and post-task. So let's go to the first part here, which is pre-task. Now, and in the pre-task stage, we have three things to do. Number one, introducing the topic. Now, someone might say, what do you mean by introducing the topic? I mean, think about what we usually do in all frameworks. We usually start with a leading, and in the leading stage, we try to attract students' attention. We try to make them interested in the topic. And that's what we mean by introducing the topic. Make students interested in the topic of your lesson. And of course, that topic will be the topic of the task. And in order to do this, I went to a wonderful book called Cutting Edge. And I went to the intermediate level and I found an interesting topic called Talk About Someone You Admire. So my friends, let's see how I introduce the topic to my students. Let's go there. Now, today we're going to talk about people who are famous and important in our lives, right? So we will need to talk about someone who means a lot to us, okay? That could be, one of your relatives, it doesn't matter. But it can be someone famous, right? So let me start by asking you some questions here. So who is the person you feel is very important to you?
Dr. Ahmed Khalid Tawfiq.
Oh, yeah.
Who can say someone else?
Why?
Dr. Ahmed Khalid Tawfiq inspires me. He's my godfather.
Oh my gosh! Wow! And what kind of books did you read for Ahmed Khalid Tawfiq?
Anything for him. Anything. Except the thrilled. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah.
That's like the most famous series.
No. The thrill.
Exactly.
Novels. The thrill novels. Aquarelle or something like that.
Utopia?
This is the only one. Novel.
So you read the fantasy books you wrote?
Most of them, and all the novels, all the books, all the articles.
Wow,
Yeah.
right. I love the guy. I used to read
This
to
is so-
Ahmed Khalid Tawfiq.
Yeah,
Rahmatullahi.
this is
Right, okay, wonderful. So what else? Got, yes?
Not someone famous.
Oh yeah, I mean, it could be a relative.
Yeah, my mom.
Your mom. But why? Why was it the first name that came into your head?
We fight a lot, but I love her so much. Because we're different mentalities and so on. But if I have any problem, she's always right. Always. Even I say no, you're not right. She's always right. She always has a point.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, but I've never imagined my life without her. Even we fight a lot, but I've never imagined my life without her.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, moms are great.
Yes.
Moms are great. I mean, the parents love you for nothing.
Yes.
They don't expect anything from you. They just love you for who you are. Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of people that inspire you, but I love somebody who is in the room right now.
Yeah.
She is my mentor, by the way. I love her so much.
Let's stop the camera. So, can you tell us why you like Amy so much?
Yeah, from the first time I saw Amy, I saw a mentor inside her. Like we've watched both of us like the movie Good Will Hunting, who is talking about a mentor who was like monitoring the kid, and he was a bad kid, by the way. I'm not. And he did, wonderful things to the kid, and he changed his life. So I was inspired by Amy, and I with her, I met her after,
wow.
we passed like the first 4 sessions. That I got inspired by you.
Okay.
Yeah.
But good for you. Amy. A lot of lovely work. Okay.
It's wonderful.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So yes.
When I was child, I thought that the role model should be perfect or something like this. But when I come to here and see a lot of people here help each other without any reason, like Mr. Ismail, he gives us like comfort zone to express ourselves very well. And I thought about that, and I have a lot of role models in my life. Maybe in like scientific point I have one, and fashion or something I have one, and in field, yeah, each point I have a role model, so there's no perfection.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah.
But
Right,
our
okay.
parents, there are.
Your parents as well. Right, wonderful. Now the second step in the pre-task block is what we call identifying topic language. And when I say identifying topic language, I mean by this the language students will need for the topic. And this can be actually done either by guided discovery or self-directed discovery. So in guided discovery, there is a bit of help from the teacher. And in self-directed discovery, students are on their own. Students are on their own, searching and trying to find the language that they will need for the topic. Now, if you go for self-directed discovery, then you need to make sure that the students have the right resources. They have maybe access to the internet, so they can go and search and find the language they need for the topic. Or they have an access to the center library or the school library, where they can go and get the information they need. If you think that this is difficult and you don't have these resources, then you need to help a bit and introduce something to students. So my friends, let's see how I handled this part, identifying the topic language. Let's go. So now, this is actually the topic that we're going to cover for today. So your role model, okay? And what I want you to do now is to think about the kind of adjectives that you would need when you talk about your role model, right? So I want you to generate as many adjectives as you can, and always think about your topic when you're generating these adjectives, because these adjectives would help you describe this character. So I want you first to work in groups and try to help each other, okay? Come up with as many adjectives as you can. Okay, let's do that. So let's have the 5 of you together. Try and give me a circle here. Come on, right? Let's have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's have the 5 of you. Come on. Okay.
Do you have a chair?
Try to move your seat here. That would be easier for you. Nobody is next to you. Help you.
How old are you?
Think of inspiring.
Your language wants to try to help.
VIVS.
People
Very complicated.
That would be good.
Always flattering. Oh no, that's true.
Motivating, yeah. By motivated, I feel
You or
yes, okay. It's like
reliable,
tips and
Do you have a
you can say ambitious.
yeah?
Yeah.
Care about people.
كده هي مشهورة جدا.
Who does all these traits?
Okay, my friends. Right. Okay, so back to you, Shane. Time for you, Shane. So let's say useful adjectives for the topic.
Why role model will be
I got the
You know it's so good.
Okay, right. So this group, one.
Compassionate.
Okay, right. Okay.
Sympathetic.
Okay. Sympathetic, right? Here.
Inspiring.
Okay, inspiring. Here.
Righteous. You didn't write it, by the way.
Here.
You're not supportive. More.
Okay, cheerful and supportive. Wonderful. Right here.
motivating.
Good, lovely. Now, so second step. I want you to work in groups. Now we're going to check the three lists on the board. And if you feel that there is a word that you're not sure about its meaning, discuss together, check your mobile dictionaries, and then we'll come back and talk. So back to the same groups one more time.
What else?
Let's say transparent because someone who feels for people. Agreeable. If someone is agreeable.
So, now, looking at the three columns here, after checking your dictionaries and checking with your friends, do you still need to ask me about any of these adjectives? If you have a question you can raise, you can ask. No? Everything's cool?
Yeah.
Right, so if you want to take a picture of this, you can. If you feel that you remember, it's up to you. Right? Okay. Because you might need this when you're preparing.
Yes.
Okay, right. Now let's come to the third step. in the first block, which is pre-task. And actually, the third step is introducing the task. And there are so many ways of running this sub-stage. Now, number one, you can give instructions to the task, simply speaking. Number two, you can ask students to read the task themselves and ask you questions. And number three, you can model the task with a good student. And number four, you can play a video or an audio of the task. And number five, you can show your students what previous students have done. So let's see, my friends, what I did with this stage. Let's go. We're going to listen to two people talking about the role models. Okay? And I want you to listen carefully, because remember, you'll be asked to do something like that later, but not now. Now, all I want you to do is to listen to those two people. They're talking about the role models, and they're mentioning some details about their personal life. What I want you to do is to write down these details. So you're going to write details for how many people? Two people. And how many people are we going to listen to? Two. Okay, so two people talking about two different role models, and you take notes on? Yeah. Okay. Details on the personal life. Are we ready? Yes.
The person I admire most in the world is Nelson Mandela. He was the president of South Africa during the 1990s, but before that he spent more than 25 years, I think, in prison. He was put in prison because of his political beliefs. He wanted to get equal rights for black people in South Africa, and the government put him in prison because of his political views. He was a lawyer before he went to prison, and he represented himself at his trial. Some of the things he said during his trial were amazing. They're still famous speeches, I think. The reason that I admire him is that in spite of the fact that he spent such a long time in prison, he never changed his views. It would have been quite easy for him to perhaps stop campaigning for the rights of black people, but he never did that. Right until the end of his time in prison, he was still campaigning. When I went to South Africa, I met somebody who was in prison with him, and it was amazing to hear about how they found it so easy to forgive the government and the people who put them in prison. They weren't bitter or angry about it. I think he's really influenced the way people think about how they can make changes, political changes, by standing by what they believe in and stating their beliefs very clearly.
Okay, right. So this is the first person. Now let's also listen to the second person and details about personal life. Right, let's do that.
Okay, the person I admire is my father, actually, and he was a civil engineer for 33 years, and he was very successful in his job. And after 33 years of working quite happily, he was suddenly made redundant. And at the age of 52, it was actually very, very difficult for him to get another job. So he started thinking about what he could do. And he remembered that he'd actually been very good at teaching me maths when I was younger. And I'd had a lot of problems with maths, and he'd got me through my exams. So what he did was he went back to university and he trained as a maths teacher. And now I have to say that whenever I go back to my town to visit my dad, I bump into a lot of people in our road who he teaches, and they say he's one of the best teachers that they've ever had. So that's great. The reason I admire him so much is because, you know, faced with that kind of situation, it would be very easy to be depressed and feel sorry for yourself. And my dad showed just how strong he was and how flexible and creative he can be, and that makes me very proud.
Okay, wonderful. Now, my friends, what I want you to do, with your partner, you will compare the details you got from the two listenings. the details about Nelson Mandela personal life and her father's personal life. Okay, so I would like both of you together. Here, together. Both of you. Let's have the three of you. Okay. Thanks, David.
Thank you for your support.
Well, my friends. So, let's talk about Nelson Mandela's personal life. Okay, as we heard in the track. So, what do you have on this? What kind of details have you got?
He's a lawyer, and he got into prison because of his political beliefs, and he presented himself in the court in the trial, and sorry.
Go ahead.
Yes, keep going.
So, and he wanted to for black people and white people to have like an equal life because we all live on the same land, and like that's why they put him into prison. But after he got out, he didn't change. He didn't he wasn't angry at them, and he wasn't mad at them and so on.
Wonderful. Who can add more details on Nelson Mandela?
Spent 25 years in prison, and he never changed his views.
Wonderful. What else have you got?
He influenced people.
Yeah, please.
He influenced people, and how can they how can they make political changes?
Okay. So right now let's move to the lady's father. Okay, what personal details have you got on him?
He was a successful civil engineer, and he got redundant after years.
What does it mean he got redundant?
There is no need for him anymore.
Yeah, right. Like jobless, right? Yeah.
Anymore.
Wonderful. What else have you got on the father?
He went back to university and trained as a math teacher.
And he became one of the best math teachers in the place. And when she met anyone in the street or some people in the street, they say that your father is one of the best math teachers. And she said about him that he's strong, flexible, and creative.
He never gave up.
Okay, wonderful. Lovely. Now, my friends, okay. Yes, here. Now, we're going to listen again. But this time, I don't want you to take notes on personal life details or all that stuff. I want you to listen carefully and tell me why the speaker admires this person. I want you to give me the reason why each one of them is admired. Easy peasy?
Yes.
Easy? So again, we need two reasons. One for Nelson Mandela and one for the lady's father, right? Okay, let's do that.
The person I admire most in the world is Nelson Mandela. He was the president of South Africa during the 1990s, but before that he spent more than 25 years, I think. 2.
And the person I admire is my father, actually, and
With your same partners, check whether you were able to find the reasons why these two people admire the role models. Okay? Go on. Same partners.
I catch two things.
Okay, now, what's the reason behind her admiration for Nelson Mandela? Anyone?
He never changes his views.
Yeah, okay. Although he was put in prison for a long time.
Yeah, 25 years.
Right, yeah, that's very long time, eh? Right, what about the lady's father?
like any person in his same situation would be depressed easily, but he showed how strong he was and how flexible he was and creative also.
And he brushed, like started over, yeah, right. Like he changed his whole career.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Now, I guess it is very clear for you now what your task will be. You need to talk about your role model. And I want your speech to be divided into two parts. Okay? Part number one, personal details about your role model. And part number two, the reason why you admire this person. So, number one, personal details, and number two, the reason why you admire this person. And I want you to prepare a speech that would last at least for 2 minutes. I want it to last for
2 minutes.
2 minutes, my friends. Now, I want you to work on your own. I'll give you 2 minutes to prepare. And hey, you won't be allowed to read. So I don't want you to write and read. You'll be speaking out of your mind. So you can just take notes or things to remind you. But I don't want anyone to read anything. Right? Just quick notes. So take your time, 2 minutes on my stopwatch. So now, as we saw, the pre-task stage is over. And in the pre-task stage, we did 3 things, 3 steps. Number 1, introducing the topic. Number 2, identifying topic language. And number 3, introducing the task. Now let's go to the second big block, which is what we call task cycle. And the first step in the task cycle is the task itself. So let's see how I did that with my students. Let's go. Okay, my friends, right. Okay. Now, what's going to happen is you'll be working in groups, and each one of you will be talking about his or her role model to your friends. You're not supposed to be interrupted or anything. It's not a dialogue. This is a monologue where you talk about your role model. So we expect you that you will try to cover, okay, the 2 minutes, right? Like do your best, right? Like try to add a lot of description when it comes to personal life and also the reason why you admire this person. So talk as much as you can, right? So are you going to interrupt each other during this monologue, right? No, okay. For how long are you supposed to be speaking?
2 minutes.
Yeah, 2 minutes. Do your best, right? So let's put you in groups. So let's have the 4 of you together.
He's one of my first actors, grandfather, and was with him. He was like very supportive, and he was like teaching me everything on like any other math, Arabic, any other like subjects. He was very supportive, and
one of the reasons that I admire him the most is that he treats his patients from a
Islamic critical thinking, yeah. But from an Islamic, yes.
So he fought for he's a very good and I remember I had to pray to him. So we always meet people at the street. Thank you so much.
It's okay to sin until the end of the world. That's why I admire him. That's why I admire watching his videos. Because he gives me hope. No matter how I hit rock bottom, there's always a way back. Yeah, that's
his father, back in old days, the education was very expensive. So his father took his file away from the school and he told them that you're not going to continue your education and so on. So he was like 6th primary school and he took his own file, his story from his father, and he entered it again into the preparatory school to continue his education. And he used to travel from a city to another city to learn, and he always had these bad relatives. They used to say, "You're not worthy. You can't learn. How come we all are illiterate? You can't be educated. You'll never be a good person." But he always trusted himself. He always knew what he wants, and he always achieved
Yeah, but to be honest, I'm so confused who should we talk about. But okay, I will tell you about maybe I will choose someone from my real life. I will talk about my topic because I want to discuss why I'm in my life right now. When you want to perform, was performing including join the faculty of medicine, join the faculty of veterinary medicine. And you are from Alexandria, and you didn't know anything about cows and animals and buffaloes and so on. All you knew about was the sea and fishing, and he was born in a very luxurious family, and one of the richest people in Alexandria.
So on. Nice. I love that.
I think that
And I think that
doesn't like education at all. She was saying to finish it fine when I graduated. I found that no, not everything is easy like I thought. And I found actually after he died, we faced a lot of problems. So I remembered what she did. She said that yeah, she was right. She's always right. And after he died, he asked her to get married. So inshallah, and she's still young. So I found her.
I remember
Nothing is tutor, for example, social media.
She's talking about you.
Really? I heard her on a Pakistan she
We're not college we're lawyers. Exactly.
You've listened to each other's presentations, about the role models. Okay, so I want you to tell me about the stories that affected you when you were listening to them, right? So you don't need to talk about your own story. Talk about others' role models. So who's ready?
Yeah, I will talk about my friend Taqwa.
Yes.
She told us about someone, he's a blogger or something like this on social media.
Yeah.
He inspires her because he talks deeply about some Islamic stuff and so on in a very good way. Yeah.
Okay, and what is the thing that she admires most about this blogger? Other stories that influenced you when you were listening?
Right. Yeah. I really liked a mixture of Ihab's and Mariam's story. Yes, I think and even her hands. I think they all so they all represented the idea of hard work and perseverance and that you should be always determined to achieve what you really want.
Okay, very interesting. What about your group, guys?
Someone talked about Abu Trika. He started his life not early. He started really late. He started playing in Al Ahly, and I guess 26 when he was 26, and then she admires him because he doesn't change his opinions.
Now, the second stage in the second block is what we call planning. Some people might get a bit confused here and they think that this planning is for the task. No. The task is finished now. Students finished the task. Then the question is, so what do you mean by planning here? It's actually planning for the report on the task. What does that mean? It means that this stage that we call the task cycle has 3 steps. Number 1, the task itself. Number 1, the planning. And number 3, the report. Now, in the report stage, students need to talk about how they found language, prepared for the task, and how they did the task. Now, in order to do this, they need to plan. So the planning stage is for students to prepare for the report. And this report can be oral and it can be written. Now, in this video, I chose the oral one. So I wanted my students actually to deliver presentations to the whole class on a task. Let's see how I ran the planning substage. Let's go. It is planning time. And what kind of planning am I looking for? I want you to sit in groups, okay? And talk with each other about how you planned your monologues, how you planned your speeches. And I want you to cover certain areas. So let me tell you exactly what you need to do. I want you to tell me about what kind of language was needed. And you need to give me some examples. And I don't want examples only from one person. I want you to work together and exchange your ideas, right? Second one, okay? What kind of language was used? Now, what is the difference? What kind of language was needed to do the task? But what about the actual language that was used by the speakers, right? And number 3, how much successful your friends' tasks were and why. So if you think that your friend's task was really successful, okay, what were the factors behind this success? Is it something related to content? Is it something related to language? Okay. Number 4, what challenges faced you in preparing for the task and while? So, what challenges faced you in preparing for the task and while doing the tasks? And finally, if you talked about this, then 5, what is your advice? What do I mean by advice? Because you talked here about the challenges. Now, what is your advice? How can people overcome these challenges when they're doing a task like this one? And the task I'm talking about is the monologue you did a minute ago. So again, Now, someone might ask, Shadi, why are we going to plan all this? Because I am going to choose one of you to give a presentation to the whole class. So I'm going to sit in the back and someone will stand here giving a presentation about how they planned for this whole task, covering all these points, the kind of language that was needed, the kind of language that was used, okay, how much the task was successful, why not, without mentioning names. You don't have to say, like, just, something that is general, right, and what challenges. So again, I'll give you about 10 minutes to plan this.
Alone?
Okay, in groups, of course. It has to be in groups because you need to benefit from the experiences of other people, right? And then finally, one of you will do what? Will give a presentation. I'm not going to choose. You will nominate someone to give that presentation, yes?
The kind of language you're talking about, do you mean like formal and casual, or what?
No, I mean by, in order to talk about your role model, what kind of language was needed? And what kind of language was used? So give comments also in that, okay? Are we ready? So let's sit in groups, same groups, so again.
What's some adjectives?
He is the one expressing the She said adjectives.
Adjectives. And what and I did the hardworking.
I think the same.
We only need one two.
And we use some of the expressions actually used in the practice.
So have you nominated someone to speak for you? You nominate someone. Back to you, Shade. Right. Now, my friends, here comes the third step, time. It's the report substage. And now, it is my students' time to stand and report to others how they actually did the task and planned for it. Let's see how I ran this. Okay. Right, now, my friends. So, what's going to happen now? We have mainly three groups, and we have a presenter nominated in each group. So presenters would come one by one and talk about the journey in planning for the monologue. Or let's call this presentation how to talk about your role model, right? Then take us through, okay, the process, and also make sure that you cover and you answer these questions. Now, when your friend is presenting, okay, do not interrupt him, but if you have questions, you can write them down and then discuss and ask him these questions, okay, before he leaves. So by the end of the presentation, he would say something like, do you have questions? And then answer your friend's questions about anything, right? Okay, so we're going to come one by one. So let's just start with this group. Who have you nominated? Okay.
Should I start ولا من مكاني؟
Oh yes, yes, go on.
I start right now.
Yes, please.
So I'll be presenting on behalf of this group. So the first question, what kind of language was needed for us to prepare for this task? It was collocations, past simple, and adjectives. These were the kind of language we needed in order to speak about this task. The second thing, what kind of language was used? Actually, the language we prepared, we used collocation and we used the past simple to speak about the characters, and we also used adjectives to describe them perfectly well. But how much successful your friends' tasks were and why? Honestly speaking, they were extraordinarily average. So why was that? Because yes. Yeah. So why was that? Because they had good descriptions of the characters, but they didn't have the right organization of the events. So yes, they were speaking perfectly well. They were able to be accurate, but at the same time, they weren't very effective.
Yes.
What challenges faced you in preparing for the task and while doing the task? We had one mutual challenge, which was the time was very short. Good. What is your advice? Well, my advice to my group is to order their thoughts and ideas in a more thorough way. And my advice that we could have had more time.
Okay. Okay, wait a minute. Any questions for your friends?
I just want to say how humble you are.
Okay. Okay, right. Who's who's the presenter here?
Look good? Huh?
He's always.
Me.
Number 2? The same group.
Alright, thank you very much for choosing me to talk about on your behalf. First, what kind of language was needed to talk about the role model? I think we needed to use adjectives, collocations, as Sif has said, present simple in our case, and I guess we needed to use some of the expressions we have already listened to in the track. So, what kind of language we actually used? We used adjectives, superlative adjectives, because I heard some of them saying that the most person that I admire is blah blah blah, so superlative adjectives in general. And we also used present simple, and we used the expressions like the reason I admire them is 1, 2, 3. All right, how much successful your friends' tasks were and why? I would say that some of them were very, very successful because they were very expressive. They talked clearly, thoroughly. They were very, very well organized. They organized their thoughts. What else? They talk about the personal details and the reasons why they admire that person. So yes, some of them, I would say, they needed some work. Why? Were unsuccessful because they needed more time to prepare. I would say that, and that would take us to the challenges. I do believe that some of the challenges we faced in preparing for this task is that people with lack of confidence. Some people couldn't open up. They were a little bit embarrassed, especially when it came to talking about personal details, things that were related to them, relevant to their own personal lives. They were embarrassed to open up to talk about their personal details, so that was one of the challenges. Our advice is we need to use our facial expressions and to smile more in order to give confidence to encourage each other to talk, especially when it comes to people with lack of confidence or with low self-esteem. That would encourage them more in order to talk clearly and thoroughly regarding this. Thank you very much.
Do you have questions for the lady? Okay, right. And I guess it's Abdurrahman's turn.
First of all, what kind of language was needed? We needed past simple, for example, for he was born in blah blah blah, or things that that character did in the past. And we needed present simple to talk about things that he does right now and so on. Language was used. We used some adjectives, positive adjectives, and we used some personal characteristics. And I guess that's it. Then how much successful? Yeah, all of them were really good, but Ashraf's was the best. Let me say that we agreed that we hadn't had any idea about Al Pacino. He gave us an idea about him. He made us want to see his performances and his movies and so on. What else? The problems or the challenges. We have 4. Not having enough pieces of information about that person that they are going to talk about. And we said that we can Google it or search for some pieces of information.
So my friends, in the second block, which is the task cycle stage, I covered 3 main things. Number 1, the task. Number 2, planning. And number 3, report. Now let's come to the last block, which is language focus. And let's see, my friends, how I ran this stage. Let's go. And many of you mentioned some very good stuff about the kind of language that we would need on a task like speaking about your role model, right? And one of you said present simple, right? And why do we need present simple on a task like this?
Talk about their how to describe them.
Facts?
Yeah,
Facts.
yes. If we talk about people, there are facts, especially if we're talking about people who are alive, you know.
Yeah.
So then we would need to use present simple to talk about these facts. Okay, it's talking about facts. And why would we need past simple?
What they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because.
To talk about people who are not alive anymore.
And also talk about past
Actions.
and also kind of stories related to those people. They might be alive, but we're talking about things that happened in the past. So again, past simple also is very important. So these 2 tenses are very important in a task like this when you talk about role models, right? And also someone gave me a very good thing, which is superlative adjectives. And superlative adjectives, when we say superlative adjectives, what does this refer to? Can someone give me an example?
Comparison.
Is it comparative? No, it's comparative.
Surprise, I mean the most, for
Yeah.
example, the most
Like can someone give me a sentence about a role model?
Yeah, the most one who inspires me is
But there is no adjective.
He's the most helpful person.
Yeah,
for
The
me.
most helpful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you would say something like the most helpful.
Yeah.
Can someone give me another example about role models?
Role models?
Yeah, because that's the topic.
The strongest woman I've ever met.
Yeah, very good one. The strongest.
Abdurrahman is the tallest person.
I've ever met. Is that related? Is that related to role model? I'm his idol. Okay. So one last example. Okay.
He's the most hardworking man I have ever known.
Yeah, wonderful. The most hard working man I've ever known. I love that. Right, good. So Right. So also that's something else that we would need in order to achieve this task. Right. Then someone said collocations. Totally agree. Who can give me examples of collocation? First, what is the meaning of collocation? What do we mean by collocation?
A group of words that
Again?
a group of words that give a meaning.
Yeah, but this is kind of too general. Can we get a bit more specific here? Collocations, what are
One
they?
lexical relationship, just like the relation between noun and verbs,
Yeah, I love that. Lexical relationships, or sometimes we call it word partnerships. It's like these two words come together a lot when we speak. Like homework goes with which verb?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, so these are kind of collocations. So can you think of some collocations that would be related to this topic?
Yes. The person I look up to.
Okay, well, I love that. Okay, the person I look up to. Love that. Okay, and the use of this is a very good phrasal verb. Yeah. Something else?
They said here hardworking.
Yeah, hardworking man. Yeah, that would, or hardworking woman.
Got married, maybe.
Oh yeah, it's because we're talking also about people personal life. Okay, so got married. Yeah.
fulfill promises.
Mm-hmm.
Fulfill promises. Fulfill promises.
Okay, why not? Yeah, fulfill promises. What else?
It's a breadwinner.
Mm-hmm.
A breadwinner.
Yeah, but what would it collocate with? He's a breadwinner, is kind of compound noun. Can we think of more?
Change views.
Oh yeah, right, I love that. Change views. Yeah, and I mean, again, collocations of that sort also would be really helpful. Right, now, the thing that I really want to focus on is someone said it in the presentation. Someone said what? Someone talked about the reason why I admire him or her is. What do we call that in English?
Useful language or expression.
No, wait, too general. I want to be more specific. I'll say it again. The person I admire is. When you make it this way. Cleft sentences. Excellent. So let's talk about this, because I know that this can be a bit challenging. Cleft sentences. So first, let me write a normal sentence related to role models, and then you tell me how I change that sentence into a cleft one.
Yeah.
Okay, right, so let's say, for example, I admire my dad more than anyone. Now this is a normal sentence.
Yeah.
Okay? How can I turn it into a cleft sentence? What would I say?
The person that I admire,
Just let me listen to the lady, yes?
the person that I admire the most is my dad.
Excellent. The person I admire most is
my dad.
Now, a very important question and a valid question. Why would we use cleft sentences instead of normal sentences? What is the value of using a cleft sentence?
To make it more interesting, like people
Yeah.
want to know
People
who's their person you admire the most.
Right. Cleft sentences are more interesting.
Yeah.
That's why they're used a lot in monologues and speeches. Because actually the most important thing or piece of information in a sentence is your dad. This is why it has to come at the end, so that people are trying to listen, and predict. So we say, so if you're presenting, you go, so the person I admire most in the whole world is my dad, and then everybody is waiting for that moment, and that's the beauty of using cleft sentences. Okay, like, let me put another example here. I admire his bravery. I admire his bravery. How can you turn this into a cleft sentence?
Like, what I admire about him is his bravery.
Yeah, right. What?
Or the thing I admire
Yeah.
about him.
What I admire about him is his bravery. Right, again, that's also another example of cleft sentences. Right? So usually, cleft sentences would start with things like the place, or the thing, the man, the person. Or you say, sometimes it can start with what? Okay? Like you might say, the place I love most, Skyrim. Example. Or you can say, the thing I really hate is racism. Something like that. We say, what I really like about
him is that.
About him is, and again, as I said, the beauty of using cleft sentences is getting people attention, grabbing people's attention, right? Okay, my friends. So now, my friends, all in all, let's go over the whole framework of TBL, task-based learning. And I would say 3 main blocks: pre-task, task cycle, and post-task. In the pre-task, we have 3 sub-stages. Introduce the topic, identify topic language, and introduce the task. In the task cycle, we have 3 sub-stages: the task, planning, report, and in the post-task, we have what we call language focus. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for watching another episode of Frameworks. This was Shadi Abu Yusuf and waiting for you. And hey, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Bye-bye.